British police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew, on suspicion of misconduct in public office.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're breaking down the factors that led to Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's February 2026 arrest and what happens now.
He was never a prince. For survivors everywhere, Virginia did this for you.
What happened on arrest day?
The former Prince Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, has this morning been arrested on the Sandringham estate where he was living after having been removed, of course, from the home he was living in Windsor.
The key facts begin on Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Thames Valley Police said they had arrested, quote, a man in his 60s from Norfolk on suspicion of misconduct in public office, and that searches were being conducted at properties in Berkshire and Norfolk. Police did not name the suspect in the statement, but multiple major outlets identified the man as Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, whose 66th birthday happened to land on the same day.
Let me bring that to Robert Jobson, our royal contributor. James just said it. To his memory, it's never happened in the modern royal family. Do you have any sense that anything like this has ever happened before?
No, they've just had minor road traffic incidents that Princess Anne was arrested over a dog. No, this is truly historic.
Just as important as what the police said is what they didn't say. At the time of the announcement, there was no charge announced, only an arrest on suspicion, with investigators emphasizing the need to protect an ongoing inquiry and urging caution in reporting. Then came the royal response. King Charles III expressed, quote, deep concern and indicated cooperation if requested, while avoiding any detailed comment that could intersect with legal proceedings.
The King says, I have learned with the deepest concern the news about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office. What now follows is the full, fair, and proper process by which this issue is investigated in the appropriate manner and by the appropriate authorities. In this, as I have said before, the authorities, have our full and wholehearted support and cooperation.
The alleged misconduct, what misconduct in public office means.
It's broken down into 4 elements, and they are these. First of all, that the defendant must be a public officer acting as such. Now, that, in this case, is not, to me, entirely clear, but the police must be satisfied that he is a public, or was a public officer.
The phrase misconduct in public office can sound vague, but in the UK, it carries a specific meaning and a high threshold. It's a serious offense aimed at abuse of public power, not ordinary bad behavior.
The third element is that misconduct must be an abuse of the public's trust in them as an office holder. And finally, the conduct must be serious enough to deserve criminal punishment. So those are the 4 elements of misconduct in a public office. It's very, very broad, as you will gather. It can cover a multitude of circumstances.
Andrew's actions are being examined in relation to his tenure as the UK's trade envoy and whether confidential or commercially sensitive information tied to that work was improperly shared. The maximum penalty often cited for the offense is severe, which is one reason the public immediately reads this as more than a tabloid flare-up. Still, maximum penalties are not predictions, they're a ceiling. The real legal question is whether the alleged conduct, if proven, meets the strict definition and level of seriousness prosecutors and courts apply in practice.
You mentioned before how this is a huge story, and this is going to be headline news now all over the world, no doubt, for days and days. But the difficulty is that we don't really know very much. We don't know what the police have got. We don't know what the evidence is. We've seen some of the Epstein files releases, the material that's come out recently, which relate to Prince Andrew in different ways. But apart from that fairly limited public information, we just don't know the scope of the investigation. So
Andrew's prior exposure, the longer arc of scandal and reputational collapse.
Quite often, if I was in the United States and doing things, and if he wasn't there, he would say, well, why don't you come and use my houses? So I said, that's very kind, thank you very much indeed. But it would be a considerable stretch to say that he was a very, very close friend. But he had the most extraordinary ability to bring extraordinary people together.
You can't understand the shockwave of this arrest without the long backstory. Andrew's ties to Jeffrey Epstein were not a single photo op. They were a relationship that kept resurfacing at the worst possible moments. The association became especially toxic after Epstein's 2008 conviction, because Andrew was still linked to him publicly in the years that followed.
Well, I ceased contact with him after I was aware that he was under investigation And that was later on in 2006. And I wasn't in touch with him again until 2010. So it was one of those things that if somebody's going through that sort of thing, well, I'm terribly sorry, I can't be.
So no contact.
No contact.
The reputational collapse accelerated with a 2019 BBC Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis, a broadcast so widely criticized that it became a turning point in how the public and press viewed Andrew's explanations and judgment. From there, the monarchy moved into containment mode. In January 2022, Buckingham Palace announced Andrew would lose military roles and patronages, and would stop using His Royal Highness in any official capacity. In 2025, he was formally stripped of styles, titles, and honors, and began being referred to as Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. As such, Andrew's arrest lands after years of institutional distancing, with the Epstein link as the through line that the royal family could not quite shake.
I'm just trying to work this out, because you said you went to break up the relationship, and yet you stayed at that New York mansion several days. I'm wondering how long.
But I was doing a number of other things while I was there.
But you were staying at the house of
Yes.
a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay. I've gone through this in my mind so many times.
Triggering evidence, what the new Epstein-related disclosures added.
Now, we understand from the latest files released by the US Department of Justice that the former prince forwarded sensitive government documents and commercial information to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. As I've mentioned, Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing. MPs have been taking the allegations acutely seriously.
This case didn't appear out of thin air. Reporting consistently points to the January 2026 release of Epstein-related material attributed to the U.S. Department of Justice as the catalyst that pushed allegations into a more evidence-driven phase. Those disclosures included emails and records alleging that Andrew shared confidential government travel reports with Jeffrey Epstein, tied to overseas visits during Andrew's time as a trade envoy.
In 2010, Andrew appears to have forwarded government reports from visits to Vietnam, Singapore and China to Epstein, according to the recently published files. And the documents also appear to show Andrew forwarded Epstein information on investment opportunities in gold and uranium in Afghanistan.
Those documents allegedly reference material connected to travel in parts of Asia in 2010, and claims involving confidential government reports and commercial information. Document dumps don't automatically prove criminal conduct, but they can provide the kind of specific testable detail that turns an allegation into a viable investigative pathway.
Andrew was seeing trade officials on those journeys to try to boost British business investment in those countries, but handing over information to the financier Jeffrey Epstein, who would obviously use that to his own advantage to make money on the back of what Andrew was doing. And that is where the police believe they have enough evidence now to bring Andrew in for questioning and to arrest him.
Norway as a mirror.
The latest release of the Epstein files contains hundreds of references to the Crown Princess, including personal emails between the two appearing to show a close personal friendship. Now, over the weekend, Crown Princess Mette-Marit issued an apology saying that she showed poor judgment.
To grasp how far this story travels, look at Norway and the very specific way Jeffrey Epstein's name has landed inside another royal household. In early February 2026, newly released U.S. Justice Department files were reported to include extensive email correspondence between Norway's Crown Princess Mette-Marit and Epstein after his 2008 conviction.
Yeah, we knew that the Crown Princess Mette-Marit had a relation with Jeffrey Epstein, but when she commented that and the Crown commented that in 2019, they said that it was very, very small contact. It didn't last very long, and there were always many people present when they were meeting or talking, so they really minimalized it.
Claims surfaced that she borrowed Epstein's Florida property in 2013, alongside emails that became a fresh source of embarrassment for the Norwegian royal family. Under mounting pressure, Mette-Marit issued a public apology to those, quote, disappointed by her contacts with Epstein. describing it as poor judgment and acknowledging the strain it placed on the monarchy's credibility.
But what we see now from these emails is that their contact lasted for 3 years. They met frequently, even in Oslo. She stayed in his house in Palm Beach, and they also had quite a frequent email correspondence, which in a form and with a tone that has really made the Norwegians react.
And then, on the day Andrew's arrest dominated headlines, Norway's palace confirmed that Andrew returned the Order of St. Olav he received in 1988, without detailing the reasons. It's not a verdict or a court ruling, but it is the kind of reputational consequence monarchies increasingly face when Epstein-linked revelations bubble up.
This was quite a shock to the Norwegians, because we have several, top diplomats and other persons who have been in contact with Mr. Epstein, but that the Crown Princess has had this kind of contact with him and actually didn't tell the truth the last time she was asked about this. That has really struck the confidence and the way that the Norwegians look at her role and also at the monarchy.
The fallout.
Well, we have a statement this morning, Anna, from the family of Virginia Roberts-Giuffre, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, "At last, today our broken hearts have been lifted at the news that no one is above the law, not even royalty. On behalf of our sister Virginia Roberts-Giuffre, we extend our gratitude to the UK's Thames Valley Police for their investigation and arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor."
Beyond the palace, the loudest reactions came from 3 directions: survivor advocacy, institutional legal voices, and anti-monarchy campaigners. In the U.S., Virginia Giuffre's siblings issued the most emotionally direct statement, saying their, quote, broken hearts have been lifted, stressing that, quote, no one is above the law, not even royalty, thanking Thames Valley Police for their arrest and adding the cutting line, quote, he was never a prince.
Because this person is so high profile, a former prince, it's very important. It's a statement. It's a statement which is hopefully heard in the United States, in the Department of Justice, and Congress, that it is true. No one is above the law. And so it's very important that the UK have, now he's obviously innocent until proven guilty, but it's important that the UK took this step.
In the UK, Prime Minister Keir Starmer also leaned into the same principle, stating that, quote, nobody is above the law, as pressure mounted for any evidence to be fully examined. Meanwhile, the anti-monarchy group Republic claimed the arrest followed a report it submitted to police, framing the moment as a wider accountability problem. Legal commentators also struck a cooler note. Multiple outlets quoted experts warning that misconduct in public office cases can be difficult to prove, even with inflammatory headlines, because the evidential bar is high and the offense is tightly constrained in practice.
Allegations of sharing confidential official information are extremely serious. They carry a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Wow. So the process needs to go through the serious allegation of abuse in a public office. And again, we have to be cautious. The evidence mustn't be prejudiced. They will need to look at that. There are defenses, even if documents are shared.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. What comes next? Possible charges, court process, and broader precedent.
Yeah, what normally happens is the custody officer will authorize the detention. They will record details, DNA and also fingerprints would be taken. They would have their rights explained. Obviously, he's entitled to free legal advice. I'm sure he's probably got his own lawyers. The risk assessment, because there are cases, obviously, about that sort of side.
From here, the only honest answer is it depends on evidence. Police have said searches are being carried out and the investigation is ongoing. What comes next is a set of recognizable outcomes in UK practice. Investigators can pursue further inquiries, the CPS can authorize charges if thresholds are met, or the case can end without charges if evidence doesn't support prosecution. The Guardian notes that Andrew's legal future hinges on whether formal charges are filed or whether he is released pending further inquiries.
If there are no charges leveled against him in these first 24 hours, there's a possibility we might see Andrew go free. But Mugo, if this is constituting something that's more serious nature, he could be in custody through the next 96 hours. It just really depends on what the police find, what they haven't found yet, what they think they might be able to find over, again, this next 24 to really to the next 4 days.
If charges were to follow, the case would become a public demonstration of how the UK treats alleged breaches of public trust at the highest social altitude. If charges don't follow, the aftermath could still be severe. Reputational consequences, institutional strain, and deepened public cynicism. Either outcome will be interpreted as a verdict on the system itself, because the precedent isn't simply a royal got arrested. The precedent is whether a royal suspect can be investigated and processed in a way that looks consistent, rigorous, and impartial, with facts, not theatrics, determining the end.
I always say that trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback, and trust in the media, trust in the police, trust in the royals themselves is probably at an all-time low as a result of what's been happening in the world today. So the king is basically restoring that trust. He said, look, nobody is above the law. The law must follow the appropriate process and take its course.
Which aspect of Andrew's case shocked you the most? Be sure to let us know in the comments.